Hey everybody, Antipeter1 here and welcome to my channel. I follow David Hunsness on TikTok and he speaks a lot about how science and pseudoscience can be categorized in those two categories. But I've moved beyond that and worked out that science and pseudoscience actually have quite a few overlaps, and I'm going to talk about that in this video. Specifically, I'm going to address psychiatry because I think psychiatry is particularly important, and I regard psychiatry as the shame of, humanity in so many ways, being so detrimental to my mental health over the last 17 years, that I really want to address the issues that psychiatry presents. So one of the things about psychiatry is that people believe that it's good for your mental health. For me, it's been an absolute horror nightmare. I've been subjected to abuse, neglect, and all sorts of mistreatment from the mental health authorities, and it's been a terrible journey altogether. To me, psychiatry is basically plugging up your mind and your thoughts with medicated drugs. That's been the basic effect of what they've done. It's been a fear-based experience in which I've been afraid of doing anything except fawning against the fears that they've imposed upon me by the police, by the authorities, by those who drugged me, put me in hospital on 17 occasions, and having to deal with the police who are nightmarishly, intimidating to me. So there's a meme that I presented to mental health authority, which is this person on a couch, and the psychiatrist saying, well, I can't help you solve the problems that you have, such as climate change, but I can allow you to have less thoughts about it, or something like that. The actual quote is, I wish we could create a better society that wasn't inherently soul-crushing, and the psychiatrist responds, best I can do is pills that trick your brain into thinking you don't hate it here. To trick your brain into thinking you don't hate it here. Well, fortunately, I still live in a world where I am conscious of my hate of, society's ills and its shortcomings, and I'm trying to do a lot of things to curb those problems. But psychiatry doesn't deal with those worldly problems. It deals specifically with the mind, and it's focused locally on the mind, not on the social model of disability. The social model of disability, if you Google for that, is a model in which all social elements are accounted for. This includes the actions of the police, the actions of Elon Musk, wealth inequality, bad living conditions, bad living environments such as your terrible home supposedly, and the fact that you have to live on scraps. That sort of thing contributes to your mental well-being, or lack of well-being. So the question I want to pose to you is psychiatry a pseudoscience? My belief is that it is more a pseudoscience than a science, and that the actions of mental health authority in Australia, particularly where I have experience in the system, indicate that it is more of a pseudoscience than a science. And I will not credit psychiatry in Australia with being an actual science. It's much more speculative than that. It's, as my father once said, it's like an art in its dark ages. It's just terrible for the patient in most instances. There's some patients who are really quite grateful for what treatment they receive, but they are the cases that are extremely compliant and don't really know what they're talking about. My psychiatrist once answered to me that psychiatry is like any other science in which, like medicine, where you're treating particular conditions, which is, for me, it's a really big red herring because it suggests that depression and anxiety are not social problems, whereas the truth is that they are inherently social. One of my mentors is Johann Hari, who has written books recently and also did a really famous video called The Real Causes of Depression. The Real Causes of Depression, which I'll link in the description below. It's really important that you watch that and realize that depression is a socially based experience. It's a condition that is socially based. And once we realize that, we realize that psychiatry is very, very, very nebulous and very dubious in its conduct and its performance to especially involuntary patients. Looking further afield at other areas of science, I would say that, economics which is regarded as the dismal science, might also be something of a pseudoscience, especially because it proposes infinite economic growth to create a fair society, which is absolute nonsense and rubbish. I've talked about how late stage capitalism has robbed us of our integrity, and I will link that here and there for you to watch as well. It's one of my most popular videos. Then we look at things like quantum entanglement and then how the recent discoveries. I'm pretty sure someone was recently awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics for their work on quantum entanglement and how everything that we experience is work at a distance. So everything in the universe is inherently connected. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was some rationalization for that, even though I'm not particularly a fan of, generic subjective experience. I am not here to dirty the symbolic nature of science itself. Science itself is not a problem. Karl Popper once said that science, when it's wrong, it's never wrong. It moves on and becomes right again. It's only when we discredit science and impose our own pseudo-scientific interpretations on things that it becomes really, really problematic. And this is the case with psychiatry in the modern day in Australia. So I think the essential element about science is that it's ever developing, it's ever evolving. And if we lose that sense of evolution and we're stuck with our dogmatic and idiomatic beliefs, it becomes a pseudoscience. That's the crux of my discussion today. Julius Caesar once said in Shakespeare's adaptation of Julius Caesar's life, "I am constant as the northern star. I am as constant as the northern star." And that led to his downfall. And I think that being constant about any of our opinions as psychiatrists or any other clinician or professional will ultimately lead to our downfall. And I'm very much looking forward to that with the psychiatry profession in Australia. One thing I haven't talked about yet is environmental science and ecology. This is a science which is obviously very, very fascinating and very, very pertinent to our current society. But I will mention that although climate change cannot exactly be proved in terms of it being a crisis and a man-made crisis at that, it shows in our actions that when you deplete so much land and forests and trees and cause so much suffering to animals and stuff them into factory farms and that sort of thing, you are going to cause destruction and chaos. So your actions lead to consequences. Ecology is, in that way, much more straightforward than something like psychiatry, in my opinion. And that is why in the spiritual realm, being kind to all beings and being kind to all animals is an imperative, a moral imperative, which is the standard measure of how good and how relevant we are to this planet's future. So thanks for watching, folks. I hope you gained some insight into what a science and a pseudoscience are, and I will see you next time with more news. Bye for now.